Tanse, good afternoon. I'm Kanesatake. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Indigenous peoples continue to be overrepresented as homicide victims. That's according to the latest look at homicide trends by Statistics Canada. StatsCan says the heightened risk of homicide for Indigenous peoples is deeply rooted in the ongoing effects of colonization, including systemic discrimination, poverty, and a legacy of trauma. In 2023, just over 1 in 4 victims of homicide in Canada were Indigenous, despite representing just 5% of the overall population. The report says the homicide rate for Indigenous peoples is 6 times higher than the rate for non-Indigenous Canadians. In 2023, police services reported 778 homicides across the country, 104 fewer victims than the year before. Thunder Bay recorded the highest homicide rate, followed by Winnipeg and Chilliwack. Also, according to StatsCan, roughly 1/4 of homicides in Canada are gang-related. The cities of Thunder Bay, Winnipeg, and Chilliwack lead the way in that category. The Young Women's Christian Association, or YWCA Canada, has apologized for their involvement in residential schools and Indian hospitals. A summary report of the organization's participation was released earlier this week. Researchers commissioned by the association found that the YWCA helped shape residential school curriculums and facilitated recreational programs aimed at assimilating Indigenous peoples into European Canadian society. The organization worked with Indian hospitals on rehabilitation programs in the 50s and provided housing for Indigenous girls and women with the goal of cultural assimilation. The YWCA was also part of the Federal Indian Placement and Relocation Program, which sought to control Indigenous peoples' involvement in the labor force. CEO Alain Nigazima says the next step is connecting to survivors.
There's a plan currently right now to work through our newly created Department of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. It's also going to be doing a lot of equity work, and we are looking to engage with survivors in communities that we know our member associations were. And we are looking forward to undertaking that work in respectful dialogue. But that is work that is ongoing right now.
Federal legislation that would give recognition of certain Métis governments in Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan appears to be dead. The chiefs of Ontario who have been fighting the legislation says Crown Indigenous Services Minister Gary Anandasangri confirmed in a committee meeting this week that Bill C-53 will not be moving forward. First Nations in Ontario and others gathered in Parliament Hill in June of 2023 to oppose the bill just days before it was introduced. Chiefs of Ontario felt recognizing the Métis Nation of Ontario would have set a, quote, dangerous precedent for the recognition of false claims to Indigenous identity. The COO is calling on Canada not to enter into any further agreements with MNO and seize all processes that would recognize Section 35 until the MNO's claims are independently verified. We hope to have more on this tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. After 4 weeks, the Canada postal strike could end as early as next week. The news comes as Canada's Labour Minister held a press conference in Ottawa this morning.
The Commissioner will be tasked with examining the structural issues preventing the resolution of the current labour dispute. The IIC will be required to submit a report to me and the parties outlining their findings and recommendations by May 15th, 2025.
Stephen McKinnon, the federal labor minister, said negotiations between both parties are not working and asked the Canada Industrial Relations Board to review the state of negotiations, and it will order postal workers back to work if deemed necessary. The union representing postal workers says it denounced the move, calling it an assault on its bargaining rights. A report by the federal budget watchdog suggests more Canadians will be in need of housing in the years to come, despite increased spending promises by Ottawa. The report forecasts 2.6 million households will be in need of stable homes by 2028. Currently, that number is at 2.4 million. The federal national housing strategy aims to provide for 530,000 households by 2028, with an average of $6.1 billion spent every year. Mohawk community just outside of Montreal has little police presence due to years of tension between community members and both the provincial police and their own former police force. However, a non-police alternative, the Kanesatake perimeter security, is trying to provide a bridge between the community and police. APTN Savannah Craig has the story.
Everybody's equipped with a body cam.
Kane Montour is getting ready to patrol his community of Kanesatake.
That boss.
It's a Mohawk community located just outside of Montreal.
We say it jokingly, people come here and they forget how to drive.
Montour is the coordinator of Kanesatake perimeter security.
As soon as they get here, they get into an accident.
He says he's trying to provide a safer community for the members of Kanesatake.
They won't call the SQ, they'll call us.
The KPS offers a non-police alternative for security and support to Mohawks of Kanesatake.
There's definitely an issue here with the SQ, the trust issues, with the RCMP, with, the government.
The lack of trust has intensified in the last few decades, culminating during the 1990 siege of Kanesatake and the burning of the Kanesatake Mohawk police station in 2015 after it was abandoned.
The aftermath of that is we don't have a police force.
But there's still issues being experienced in the community today.
You have stolen vehicles or unwanted people coming here because they think that it's a non-policed community, that anything can go here.
The KPS responds to a variety of issues alongside the provincial Sûreté du Québec officers, paramedics, and the fire department.
There's a bad taste in the mouth from, I guess, going back to 1990 with the SQ and their policing, and there's no in-between. People don't feel comfortable calling them sometimes, so they'll call us as like a mediator because we can do almost everything except police.
Montour says racism can create a hesitancy for community members to call the provincial police.
I've had family members who are beaten for no reason. Myself, I've been harassed by SQ officers for doing absolutely nothing. Stereotyped, It's hard being an Ungwehue. It's hard being a Native person, when they see your ponytail, when they see you're from Kanesatake. And, racism, it's real, it's here.
Montour says the KPS is doing what it can to support community members and address the illegal dumping of waste in Kanesatake.
What we've been told to do is keep note of it, take down license plates, markings of the dump trucks, the drivers, where they go, where they're dumping.
Steve Douglas is the supervisor for the KPS.
That we're here for the community, and realistically, we are to enforce Mohawk law.
The KPS has limited powers.
But as far as giving out fines, stopping people and physically stopping people, we don't have that capability.
Many First Nations communities across Canada are looking to establish their own police force to replace Canada's provincial or federal police forces in their communities. Could the KPS become Kanesatake's next police force?
I don't know. I can't make that call. But right now, we're here, we're helping, we're doing what we can.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Kanesatake, Mohawk Territory.
A new Senate report is calling on the federal government to establish an Indigenous human rights ombudsperson and tribunal. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story from Ottawa.
The Senate Committee on Indigenous Peoples released its report on Thursday morning in Ottawa. Senator Brian Francis is the chair of the committee. He says Indigenous people need a human rights regime that is more responsive to the needs of Indigenous people.
An Indigenous ombudsperson and human rights tribunal grounded in Indigenous knowledge, practices, and traditions, such as mediation and other forms of dispute resolution, would be better suited to bring justice to people and communities where it has been in short supply.
Senator David Arnott also says the Canadian Human Rights Commission and Tribunal in their current forms make it difficult for Indigenous people to pursue their rights due to high legal costs.
As a result, many would-be litigants can find themselves unable to make a complaint unless they have considerable means or can find counsel willing to do so for pro bono work.
In the past, organizations like the Assembly of First Nations have said Indigenous rights must be primarily defended by their elected governments and not by bodies like the Tribunal. But Senator Michelle Odette says there needs to be a balance where grassroots people can have their voices heard.
If we had a national inquiry, it's because grassroots people stood up and supported many chiefs in Canada. So the balance is very important, that we have also a space, safe space, where the people have a say in those structure.
First Nations Child and Family Caring Society Executive Director Cindy Blackstock says she supports the report and its recommendations, but that an Indigenous ombudsperson and tribunal must have at least the powers of the CHRT and probably more.
You need to have real teeth in those orders to be able to force change. Because even when governments make statements that they want things like Jordan's Principle to be implemented, which was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission's top call to action, sometimes that doesn't actually manifest on the ground. And despite, you're wanting to feel like when they know there's a problem, they'll fix it, that doesn't always happen.
APTN News reached out to Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Gary Anasandagri for comment. In an emailed response, his office says it welcomes the report and will be reviewing accordingly. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Jody Wilson-Raybould is back for part 2 of Tina House's sit-down interview with the now award-winning author. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now here's part 2 of Tina House's sit-down interview with former Attorney General of Canada and now best-selling author, Jody Wilson-Raybould.
Any future for you in politics once again?
Well, I'm really happy with the place that I'm in. I think this is the place that I'm supposed to be, and continuing to spread my learnings and my understandings and my ideas to advancing our people and Indigenous people in this country. But never say never. I know people say that all the time, but I do believe in callings. And for me, I do potentially see a pathway back into politics, but I'll have to wait for that sign.
Now, going back to that word pathway forward, what is your idea in terms of a way forward for Indigenous people to advance their rights in this country with the political level that we're at now?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very, challenging time in the country, globally. I mean, for me, I talked a bit about being elected in 2009 as the regional chief here in British Columbia. For me, and it always has been this, the key to advancing Indigenous issues in this country is to change the approach, which has been the approach by every successive federal government and other governments, which it has been the denial of Indigenous peoples' rights. We need to turn that page to change from the denial of rights to the recognition of rights. And the key to transforming Indigenous communities and nations in this country is by exercising our inherent right to self-determination, which includes self-government. This is one of the major things that brought me to Ottawa, and it's one of the major pieces that still needs to be done that I'll continue to advocate for, which is a mechanism to enable our communities, First Nations, to move out from under the Indian Act to be self-determining and self-governing.
Amazing. Just so incredibly proud of all of your accomplishments, and thank you so much for being such a powerful leader for all of our Indigenous nation here in Canada.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you for what you and what APTN does in telling the stories, the really important stories of our communities.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Tina. We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, are financial pressures affecting your Christmas shopping? Your answers are yes, no, or I don't buy gifts. Have your say at www.aptnnews.ca. He's a musician, a motivational speaker, and entrepreneur. We have Okema, aka Cody Montour, in studio next. We're back in less than 3 minutes. Stay with us. Beginning in the east, Charlottetown -1, Halifax 1 in sun. Nujuak -3, the Grand River -5. Quebec City -8, Saint Jovite -8 as well. -4 in Toronto, Peterborough sunny at -5. -7 in Sudbury, Thunder Bay -17. The Paw -20, Norway House -22. -21 in Gimli, Princess Harbour -22. -17 in Yorkton, -9 in Swift Current. Stony Rapids -12, Buffalo Narrows -12. -7 in High Level, Fort Chipewyan -7. -1 in Medicine Hat, Calgary -4, pardon me. 7 in Campbell River, Kamloops 2. -14 in Fort Nelson, Dease Lake -4. -28 in Old Crow, Mayo -18. -23 in Wati, Wrigley -24. Partly cloudy in Fort McPherson at -23, Inuvik -24. -22 in Baker Lake, Chesterfield -21. And Clyde River -22, Iqaluit -6. Our next guest calls Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan home, but he is from the Samson Cree Nation in Alberta. Cody Montour, aka Okema, is an artist and musician and motivational speaker and entrepreneur. He just released his 6th single called Wasted and is in the developing stages of one day creating an album, but he already has listeners from 101 countries. He has also been speaking to youth, traveling alongside TikTok superstar Brett Moussois and award-winning rapper Joey Styles. Okema spoke with us recently this week in our Winnipeg studio. Cody Montour, aka Okema, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. My first question is, for those who may not know you, can you explain who you are and where you're from?
I'm from Samson Cree Nation in Musqueam, Alberta. To put it down into simple terms, I'm an Indigenous man that's healing, trying to find my way on my healing journey. And I've just happened to be able to be blessed to be able to do music and motivational speaking along the way. And, but at the end of the day, I'm just an Indigenous man that's just trying his hardest to heal every day.
You're a musician and an artist who has done some recent work with Matt Mack on his latest album. You've done up to 6 songs, and a lot of them, the theme is about overcoming life challenges. Can you tell us why you got into music and being an artist and hip hop and being a rapper?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I first stepped into music, I found out that it was my outlet. At the time when I first found music, I didn't know that it was healing me. It was allowing me to release all that pent up emotion, all that pent up that pain that I was holding on to for so long. And when I found music, I was finally releasing it. I didn't know it at the time, but when I finally stepped into my healing journey and I found the power of my outlet, that it just won't just heal me, but it can heal others. I was just overtaken by the power of it, and I just stepped into it fully, and simply stepped into it and allowed it to take me to places that I never thought I'd ever be, but at the same time be able to heal myself and others doing it.
You're also a motivational speaker and an entrepreneur with a clothing company under the same name, Okema. I noticed that the themes in those 2 ventures are really focused around Indigenous youth. Can you tell us why?
I say it everywhere we go, our youth are really going through it right now. It's a different time than when we grew up, and we as Indigenous people, we have to adapt to that. We have to learn to adapt to that. And I found out that, we can still reach our youth, but we have to do it in different ways. And, if I can show them that by finding my voice, that they can step into their confidence, break out of that shell that's, intergenerational trauma has put us inside of. If we can get them to break out of that and just become who they are meant to be, that's what really motivates me to go into communities and just be one-on-one with as many youth as I can, just to show them that it's possible, and I also want to tell them that it's just never too late. I use my story to show them to not be like me. If you're going through trauma, if you're going through pain, let's face it right away. Don't be like me and wait decades to do it, because I always wonder, where would I be right now if I would have tackled my trauma when I was 17 years old, when it happened. And I don't want our young ones to go through that. I want them to heal right away and become their truest form as soon as possible.
You share that message a lot with the youth. When I was at the Matt Mac show here in Winnipeg, a lot of that themes that you were talking about with the youth there, same thing, healing and overcoming your emotions. That's really something is close to your heart.
Yeah, no, it is. When I was able to start my healing journey, when I decided to become sober and really step into my healing, and you know, it took me to hit rock bottom. But when I look at my rock bottom, I'm thankful for it because it allowed me to have a new beginning. It allowed me to start over, and I started over in the right way. And when I found the power of my healing and that transformation, no matter how I come from severe trauma, and to be able to show people that it is possible to transform into a life of beauty, a life of success, happiness, most importantly, a life of love. Man, I just want people to experience what I get to experience now, and that's the mission.
Finally, Cody, really briefly, what is your message to Indigenous youth struggling out there, and what is your words of advice for them?
You're gonna have people that we all grow up, we can't control our environments. We can't control that. When we come into this world as Indigenous people, we have the odds stacked up against us as soon as we step out of our mother's womb. And we always have to remember that we are stepping into trauma that isn't ours. We're stepping into intergenerational trauma that was already present, that was out of your control. So if you feel like it's never ending, just know that we are doing the work for you guys, so to show you guys that it is possible, that you can step into your power and achieve your truest form. You can become anything you want because there is a support system there. You may feel like your environment right now isn't supportive, but we are here to show you that there's a big world out there. The world is enormous, it is beautiful, and we want you to experience it.
Cody Montour, aka Okema, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Hi, thank you, my brother.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday, December 13th. Ihai! Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast with more stories. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, Kwana, hi, miigwech. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Stay warm out there.